Welcome to the Kubras.com podcast, a show for Afro-Cuban and Afro-Brazilian musicians and fans. Hosted by Afro-Cuban percussionist Jesus Diaz. The Kubras podcast is sponsored by CongaMasterclass.com, featuring Jesus Diaz and Michael Spiro. SambaMasterclass.com with Georgie Alabe, and Kubras.com, Afro-Cuban and Afro-Brazilian music instruction on the web.
Hi, everybody. Jesus Diaz here with the Kubras.com podcast. Thank you for joining us. This is a great podcast aimed at people who are interested in Afro-Cuban and Afro-Brazilian music. And we look forward to having many, many more. Make sure you keep giving us suggestions as some of the things that you are interested in getting from us. If you have any complaints, of course, you already know you have to send them to Steve, and if you have any compliments, send them to me. I'll take all the compliments.
We'll take both at kubrasonline@gmail.com. Just send them our way. You know, it's kind of pointless, right, to do this show just for Jesus and I, as we mentioned in the first podcast. So we definitely want the audience giving us feedback, and we'll do our best to incorporate your suggestions. We can't get to all of them, but hit us back with some ideas. We'd really appreciate that. We're brought to you kind of by CongaMasterclass.com, which features the teaching of Jesus and Mike Spiro and a bunch of other guys on it as well. Also SambaMasterclass.com, music of Brazil with Georgie Alabe and Mike Spiro as well. And then you're getting this from Kubras on Kubras.com, and be sure to check out that site as well. So what's on tap? What are we going to talk about today, Jesus?
Let's talk about...
You have a new album, a new CD you've been working on. It's a Labor of Love, it sounds like.
Yes. Let's talk about that a little
bit. What's
the
name? What are we calling it?
Well, that album is going to be called La Jungla, which means the jungle.
The jungle. Oh. Yeah.
So... the reason I call it La Jungla because it's a combination of, pretty much almost like everything that I do.
Right.
This particular CD is going to have everything from like folkloric music, straight folkloric stuff.
Sure.
It's going to have rumba, it's going to have bembe, it's going to have ESI, it's going to have timba, it's going to have Latin jazz. It's a world of many different styles that I'm familiar with and that I've played throughout my short career.
Yeah, your career touches on all those things. Are you singing on it as well?
I'm singing on it as well. So it's it's kind of a fun project, and the way I went about it, it's a little bit kind of a long way to go about it, but I wanted like really a specific sound. So I started out by playing everything.
All the different parts.
All the different parts.
All the drumming you did and the bass parts and...
Yeah, I just did everything. I'm not a bass player, but I, with the keyboard.
Right.
And using bass samples and stuff like that. And I play piano and I play all the horn parts and all that. Then get all that stuff transferred onto paper.
Right.
And little by little, as people have able to come by the studio, they've been coming down and
neat. Right, so then they bring their own kind of taste to it,
exactly.
kind of thing.
Right. So, it's pretty cool. It's a kind of a long project, but it's kind of fun.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. And obviously guys that come probably throughout the country come in and wind up recording with you.
Exactly. Yeah, I have going to have a lot of great artists and players. I have, for example... Osmani Paredes, one of the great piano players from Cuba who lives in the East Coast.
Oh, cool.
He's going to be on some tracks. Another great Cuban bass player, Jorge Sawa, is going to be on some tracks. And I'm going to have, everybody, a lot of different people, as well as my own band, QBA.
Right.
Which has some of the greatest local talent around here, like Murray Lou on piano.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, if you haven't heard the QBA albums, be sure to get them because they are amazing. They're super musical is what I like about them. And Jesus sings on those albums as well as some of the great Bay Area musicians, a great sounding band. So be sure to check that out.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I mean, this is kind of a fun project, and look for that La Jungla coming up fairly soon.
Fairly
Yeah.
fairly
I'm
soon.
almost at the tail end of it. I'm
awesome.
mixing it up already and everything, so
That's
it should be
great.
cool. And I don't know if people are interested in checking out QBA. I'm going to be playing at the San Jose Jazz Festival August 14th.
Sure.
2 p.m.
Oh, good.
Yeah, right on the big salsa stage. So if you feel like dancing, come check it out.
Downtown San Jose, right?
Yeah, downtown San Jose.
Very
It's gonna
good.
be a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
fun.
a great jazz festival. So be sure to check that out. Not only QBA, but I know Mike Spyro and Wayne Wallace will be down there, as well as a bunch of the great other Afro-Cuban musicians as well. It's
Yeah, the San
chock
Jose.
full.
Yeah, the San Jose Jazz Festival covers a very wide, genre of music.
Right.
So they have several stages there. They have the Latin jazz stage, they have the salsa stage, and the jazz stage. It's pretty great. So if you happen to be in the area, come check it out. Here's part 2, the interview with Deborah Garibaldi that we did for CongaMasterclass.com. So check it out and let us know what you think of it.
Sure.
Yeah, and down to the nightclub?
I won't even attempt it. We haven't done it in years.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm asking that because when I moved to California in 1968 from Chicago, in Chicago I grew up on R&B, and I moved to California and I couldn't find any anywhere, and so my first or second year in college, when I first heard the Tower, I finally, I jumped out of my chair, going, there it is, there it is, there it is. And I was just kind of curious as to how, what you were playing then that made me jump out of my chair and go, that's what I've been trying to listen to and couldn't find anywhere in California. But I remember once I started to play in the early 70s, play conga drums and learning to play Latin music, still learning, but really learning then, was noticing that same thing. It's that same, you could play clave to this if you wanted to, and I got really excited by that notion that there were these, that even though R&B guys wouldn't even have known the word clave, but that there was that.
There was this band called Redbone that I used to like. They were like late 60s, early 70s. They had a really great drummer. His name was Pete DePoe, and he had this beat that he used to play called the King Kong, and it's the song with the prehistoric rhythm with the King Kong beat. But the bell part was this. So I just play.
That was the King Kong beat?
The King Kong beat, yeah. That's what they call it.
How interesting is that?
Yeah. But then when I started, listening to, to Latin music and Cascada and all that, and then hearing that rhythm that was kind of in a lot of things, I based a lot of stuff off of that. That really changed everything for me. Playing that really opened up a lot of stuff, because prior to that it was all a lot of continuous kind of
Right.
16th notes,
So this
and so when I started listening to that music and I discovered, well, say, I could kind of break everything up, but keep that same flow. I could break it all up. I couldn't do it at the time,
Right.
but that was the idea. So then I started working towards that, was, having more independent sort of parts going on, that were dependent on each other for the groove, that sort of thing. A little more linear, I guess you would say.
Yeah, yeah.
I really appreciate what you're saying about, how there was really no rules when you guys started to get together. It was more like everyone bringing something to the table.
Exactly.
Because I think it's really important to emphasize that, because nowadays a lot of people, all they care about is speed and chops and things like that, and they don't really know what it takes to create a sound.
When we started playing together, one of the things that allowed us to really gel was there was no rules whatsoever. 'Cause we just came and we played and we created. And if I did something, make some kind of rookie mistake, you guys would say, no, that doesn't work like that. And then you would teach me how it worked, but it was really not far from where I was initially. You know, it's just one little move a beat here or move a beat there.
Yeah, and it wasn't really so much about you making a rookie mistake, but it was more about what if you move it here so that he can do that and I can do this, and it can become more of a conversation. It was more of that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was really just displacing the beat.
Yeah.
I appreciate your taking the time to talk a little bit about that. I know that, you know, after all these years, all the interviews and all the people, you know, what about, and can you play soul vaccination, or, you know, whatever it is. But I think it's important that people gets to hear you talk about it, not only from way back then, but then as it relates to the three of us. And I think eventually at the end of the day, how funk and Cuban music actually do have a,
Yeah, they're like together very well.
you know, kissing cousins, and that Changuito in the 70s and David Garibaldi in the 70s, not even knowing each other and yet coming up with these things that are so similar in terms of concept. And I think that
That was another thing that helped me to understand how to play with you guys, was listening to Changuito and discovering, because he came to my house one time. Rebecca Maleon brought him over to my house, and we sat and played for an afternoon, and I got to watch him do his thing, and it was very much like playing funk music. It was so much like it. It was, you know, all the sticking patterns, a lot of the same stuff, but the way that it felt when he played had, you know, the more the Cuban kind of feel to it, but it was still, it was like funk. When I first started playing with, especially with you, Jesus, is I couldn't lock with you because my time was straight up and down and yours was more loose. And I couldn't understand for the longest time why I couldn't lock with you. And that was it. So as soon as I learned, eventually, or after several years of us playing together, and I learned to kind of relax what I was doing a little bit, play the same stuff, but kind of just loosen it a bit, then it had a similar swing to what you were doing, and we could, you know, we could fit together, because it's not straight up and down, you know. Like I come from that straight up and down sort of thing, and R&B is like that, you know. The Afro-Cuban thing was more loose, more that, if you call it fixed, the, you know, the sixth and the fourth.
You were somewhere in the middle in Neverland.
Yeah, exactly.
last thought I would add to that is, for people out there, is I think our goal is, it's not either or, it's both and. The
Exactly.
context that you play in determines how you play. It's not, oh, well, I just play this and then no, it's, if you're in this band, you play this way, and if you're in this band, you play this way. And Jesus and his band might have a tune he wants played a certain way. It's not, well, no, I don't do that. It's, well, that's cool. What's that? You know, not either or, both and. And the best musicians I know are always open, you know, to that idea. Thanks for listening, everybody. We're so, again, honored and pleased to have David with us today, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to get to sit and talk music and all that kind of stuff with the three of us together. So see you, we're gonna break for a second and then check out what we're gonna play in a minute. So we'll see you in a second.
Wow, pretty amazing stuff, huh?
For sure.
Yeah, so to see and get more of this information, make sure you visit us at congamasterclass.com, where he very carefully breaks everything down for everyone to be able to comprehend.
You know, on the first episode, we gave a tip out, and it was such a great segment, a lot of insight, I felt. We should do it again. So
Why not?
any thoughts about, you know, the kind of the process that you went, tips for musicians based upon your work with Garibaldi and Spyro and that amazing group, Talking Drums?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the most important things that I think people should know about is the amount of work and time and effort that it took for us to get this together, because this whole thing started out as lessons for everyone.
Right.
It just so happens that Garibaldi was very interested in learning Afro-Cuban music, and people steered him towards Spyro
Right.
at first. Actually, him and Spyro started getting together before I was in the picture, and then during that time, Spyro and I had a group together. We had actually a very good group. The name of the group was Orquesta Guayacan, which was the original Guayacan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because now there's another one, but we had the very first Guayacan
Right.
group. And so when Garibaldi came to talk with Spyro, he said to Spyro, told him, you got to check out, Jesus.
Right.
Come, we're doing a gig together, and Jesus is playing, drum set and timbales and all that, and you should come check him out. And so that's how the whole thing started. He came over and saw me perform, and he was like, "Oh, we all the three of us have to get together," and and so we got together and started putting pieces together. But what's really the important thing about this is that it turned into a lesson for everybody.
Right.
Because I learned something from David, he learned something from me, David learned something from Spyro, I learned from Spyro, he's Spyro from me, and it's like a give and take.
Well, I think, even like instruments, already between musicians, professional musicians, there's a lot of competition. And sometimes you forget that you got to learn, you got to keep
Right.
expanding like your musical vocabulary. And, drummers can be competitive with other drummers, not wanting to share their ideas.
Right.
But I think you really have to kind of, learn from other people.
I think it's a mistake personally to think of, I don't want to put out my ideas because somebody's going to steal my stuff. I mean,
Right.
to me, that's a very childish way to approach music. If you're going to make music, you have to be willing to share it, because
Right.
you can't make a band by yourself. You need
No.
other people.
No.
So I think that's really what's really cool about our ensemble is that nobody was hiding anything. We all know what we are capable of doing.
Right.
And, everybody brings something different, and that's what makes the project work and makes it unique. Everybody has an idea. And, I tell you, Stephen, you can learn from your students. Like, even when I go teach a class, I'm learning from my students all the time.
Right.
It's a live learning thing, and I think that's, one of the big tips for today. Make sure that you, stay humble and don't be afraid to share what you know, because it only gets better. Everybody has something to bring.
For sure.
And an original idea, it's always going to be better than anything else. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, so that's the tip for today.
Thank you. And that concludes our episode here, our second one that's now in the can. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter, Conga Masterclass, Kubras Online, and also Samba Masterclass. More interviews and more insight into Afro-Cuban and Afro-Brazilian drumming and music coming up. Stay tuned for episode 3. We'll get it out to you just as soon as we can.
And don't forget, if you have any complaints, give them to Steve.
I'll take them. kubrasonline@gmail.com. But better yet, just give me the suggestions. We'll try to get to them. If you have any questions, send them our way as well. We'll be happy to do our best to answer those on the air as well. So see you next time.
Bye-bye.